Hi.
Hi.
So we read 1984, and now we're going to talk about it in a book talk on YouTube. You want to start off?
Sure. It was written by George Orwell, 1949, right after World War II.
Yep.
Big war.
Yep. And it's a dystopian, would you call it a thriller? I'd almost call it a thriller.
Suspense.
It was very suspenseful. But it's a dystopian, it's a piece of satire, and it's amazing.
Yes, it's very sarcastic and very paradoxical
Satirical.
throughout the entire book.
Yep. And so it focuses on the main character, Winston Smith, who is a middle-aged white man. He's got varicose veins. He's all kinds of messed up in the brain and in the body. He's a member of the Outer Party. We'll go into that later. And he works for the government, and he's upset with the government.
Yes, and the government basically is the inner party, and they have control over most of society and every part of society.
Yeah, and they're led by a figurehead or mythical creature, or centaur, or dinosaur,
Whatever
or
you
person,
want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it, because we never find out, but an entity by the name of Big Brother, who is always watching.
Right, and basically that's the way that the party focused all of the good and love and happiness of the people towards one figure who then controls everyone.
And how they completely bent the population to their will. So let's do a brief rundown of the summary. You want me to take it?
Sure.
I'll just take it. I'll just bullet point brief rundown. Main character, Winston Smith, old man, broken, varicose veins, not good guy.
But he has a memory.
But he's got great memory. Works for the government. Works for the Ministry of Truth. Changes the past. Literally alters newspaper clippings for the government. Hates the government. Intrinsically rebels against the government. Finds a woman he loves, I guess, named Julia. Boring stuff happens. They make out. They do stuff in the woods. They run away together. They hold hands and walk and things. They buy an apartment. Boring crap. Then we get to the good stuff. O'Brien meets them. O'Brien is an inter-party member, but he actually works for the Brotherhood, who is against the party. The party is evil, the Brotherhood is not. Brotherhood represents democracy and freedom. We're keeping all this footage in because it's hilarious. O'Brien gives them, shut up, Nick. O'Brien gives them a handbook, Goldstein's handbook. Goldstein's handbook is good, we'll get into it later. O'Brien is awesome, so they think. Then they go back to their apartment, they kiss some more. Then Julia falls asleep, like they normally do. Then Winston starts reading. He reads Julia to Julia, but Julia falls asleep because she doesn't really care. Then now we're gonna get into spoiler alert. I'm gonna stop at then because the paperweight fell and the paperweight shattered. You know what I'm talking about if you're in the book. If you don't, read the book. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. So they're reading this book, and crap hits the fan.
Yes. Basically they were looking at this woman outside, and she had this huge family, takes care of all these kids, and she's singing, and basically
that lady literally sings.
Symbolizes freedom, and that's that touch of freedom that's so close. That
Same with the paperweight.
Right. They feel like they can grab the freedom.
And then you know what happens? The thought police goes, and they kick down the door, paperweight falls, old lady stops singing, and crap gets real, and they both go to jail. Then Winston gets tortured, and Winston gets all of his heart spoken out. He becomes a little crying baby. He poops himself, and he wets his bed, and he pretty much just tells them everything, all the crimes he's committed, and then he finds out who's behind it all. You want to tell him who's behind it all?
O'Brien.
That's son of a gun.
And from the beginning, he's the one that led him to believe that the Brotherhood was a thing,
Yep.
that Goldstein was a thing.
And it was all a creation of Big Brother, because Big Brother never loses.
And Big Brother never exists.
And exactly. And so O'Brien takes him and tortures him in the bottom of the Ministry of Love, which is a torture chamber because they're a bunch of sadistic a-holes. But he tortures him, and he shocks him, and he does crazy crap to him. But the worst part is that even after Winston admits everything, that's not why the torture is happening. He tortures not to get information because he knows information. He sees everything, he hears everything. They're torturing Winston literally so that they can remove all
hate against Big
Yeah,
Brother.
all sense of humanity from him. They want 2 + 2 to = 5.
Yes.
They want him to love Big Brother, and by the end, after he rats out Julia, got it. After he rats out Julia, he loves Big Brother, and he gets sad. And this was not the ending, I thought, because when I picked it up, I read the Hunger Games series, so I picked it up and it said, the clock strikes 13 or whatever, and I was like, ooh, this is going to be dystopian, and there's going to be a war, and there's going to be a battle, and Winston Smith's going to put on some armor, and he's going to grab a bow and arrow, and he's going to shoot PETA in the face, and crap's going to hit the fan, and crap
never did.
No, and it ended sad.
Crazy.
The ending was so sad.
And basically, we thought the whole time that Winston was going to catch a break, and he was going to get into the Brotherhood, and he was going to overthrow the government. He was going to get the proles to finally work up and think of their own thoughts and rebel against the government.
Like, the book was segmented into 3 sections, and I was like, okay, cool. Beginning section, exposition, that's what it was. Second section, love. Gotta have love in a novel. I hate love in a novel, whatever. It has to be there. Perfect, done. But then he's reading Goldstein's novel, and I'm like, yes, this is going to be where he does it. He's going to get back with O'Brien. They're going to make a war, and the third section is all going to be battle. They're going to battle it out with the government. They're going to team up with Eurasia or whoever they're fighting at the time, whether it's Eurasia or East Asia.
It changes every day.
It changes every day. And there's going to be a war, and there was no war. It was torture and death and sadness and done. So now you're caught in. End of spoiler alert. So let's talk about analysis. I have 2 questions for you, Nick. Firstly, at the end, do you think he died? Or do you think they let him live?
I don't know, because basically they completely already removed all of the life
out of him.
Throughout the torture, throughout the whole kidnapping, and
this is still spoiler alert, by the way.
Everything. I mean, really, they already removed the life out of him. So wouldn't it be more torture to just let him live?
Yeah, but I don't think they did. I think they wanted to remove everything inside of him, and then I thought they were going to kill him because he had that whole talk about how you'll be walking down a dark hallway and you won't hear anything, and by the time you hear something, there will be a bullet in the back of your head. And I think that's exactly what they did to him. Probably in that coffee bar with Julia. Just like in that one movie with that one guy.
Yep.
I guess. But, so that's my first question. My second question for you, Nick, is let's just talk about it. What was your favorite part of the novel?
I think my favorite part was...
Snack break. We're going to put this in. Snack break, guys. We have triple stuffed Oreos. Jealous much? So, Nick, your favorite part?
I think my favorite part of the book was probably when everything went wrong. Because you knew it was coming. You just didn't know how. I mean, because it was a dystopian book. And, before I read it, I heard that it was a dystopian book. So, I mean, we knew that stuff was going to go wrong. We just didn't know how it was going to unfold and how it was coming. And we didn't know if Winston was going to maybe, get somewhere with this rebellion or do something with the Brotherhood, maybe overthrow the government.
Yeah, and wait, were you like me? Because I had heard about this book and I had heard that I was supposed to read it, but I went in blind. I had no idea what it was about.
Nope,
you?
No idea.
Yeah, so continue.
And I just thought, I just thought it was something where everything's upside down, like kind of like Alice in Wonderland, but more mature. And basically, that's all I thought it was. But then I read it, and I mean, there's so much depth and so much historical allegories that go into it, and it's crazy how everything relates and what George Orwell was actually saying.
Yeah, my favorite part had to be right before crap hit the fan. It was honestly, my favorite part was Goldstein's novel. I know it was added as an explanation, and it was an amazing explanation. The amount of time and effort and thought that George Orwell put into just this manifesto. I read every word of it. I thought it would be boring. I thought it would be like a textbook, and all of it made sense. The way they had a country constantly working towards something and giving all their labor toward the war, and how they were just throwing the war in the ocean pretty much, how there was never a war, but they kept him working to like all that psychological and historical background that creates empires. It was amazing. Good job, George Orwell.
Yes, and basically the problem was because most rebellions come up from the proles and the working class, and so
the proletarians.
So this government, the party, needed a way to eliminate that possibility because they wanted absolute control because it's a authoritarian government.
Yeah, totalitarian.
Yes, totalitarian government. So they had to figure out a way to not let the proles get any richer than they already were.
And they thought of everything. They had every single one of their bases covered. The manifesto, how long was it? It was like 20 pages long. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. It was like a 20-page long manifesto, which is a book inside of a book, and it covered everything that any critic or anybody could be like, oh, what if the proletarians said this about the government and then had a revolution? No, like George Orwell thought of that, and Big Brother was always going to win. And
it was such an original idea, and I mean, you could really relate this to now even. This really interesting quote. The problem was how to keep the wheels of industry turning without increasing the real wealth of the world. Goods must be produced, but they must not be distributed. So how are they going to do that? War. So that's what they did, and basically they just had this ongoing war with Eurasia and East Asia and these other countries, and basically it flipped around every day because they weren't really at war. They were just getting rid of these resources.
And the more they flipped it, the more people got mad.
Right, and then people would still get mad, but they couldn't do anything about it. They had no idea who they were really at war with or if they were really at war at all.
Yeah. So with this book, I guess the easiest way to summarize the analysis of this book and summarize George Orwell's intentions for this book is just that he satirized the crap out of everyone in the Axis powers, pretty much.
Yes.
All of the totalitarian government, the fascist governments, communist governments, anything undemocratic, even some he ripped into democracy a little. He was like, no, we're kind of wrong as well. And he took a big stance against government and against manipulation, and he paved the way for a lot of good satirists and good satirical novels. So one of the big symbols in this book was the paperweight, and I loved the symbol of the paperweight. It was one of those subtle symbols, and it was kind of like in The Giver, the apple, how that was such a huge symbol for everything in the book. The paperweight encompassed everything 1984, everything Oceania. But it was Winston's home. It was his freedom. It was his where he wanted to go with his life, and it was his hope. And when it shattered, when the spoiler alert, when the thought police kicked in his door and it fell off the the desk or whatever and shattered. It shattered the book. The book hit the fan, and it was an amazing symbol, and it was beautifully crafted, and it was subtle, just subtle enough for you to not think of it. Because I didn't really see it as a symbol until it had one sentence. It had a paragraph. I remember explicitly. It had a paragraph, one sentence. The paperweight fell and shattered. And then the paragraph. And I was like, okay, so the paperweight means something, and it was this huge symbol that meant everything to everyone.
And basically to Winston, he also had, he had this sense of home in this apartment that it was like his hideout.
And his freedom, yeah.
Right, and so he also had a journal that he got in what we would see as the black market today.
And he had Julia.
Right.
He had all these freedoms.
So he had all these, basically the ideal life inside of a dystopia. And basically that was his home away from home. And that's where he found freedom. And then when that all went away, that's when the whole book really took a turn for the worse.
Yeah. So, final thoughts on the book. I freaking love this book. It was I want to say a close to perfect book.
Yeah.
I don't know if there exists such a thing as a perfect book. And if so, someone give it to me. Because I don't like reading otherwise, but I thoroughly enjoyed this book and I could not put it down. Yes. So I will give it 9.5 Ewok hugs.
Okay. And I'll give it 9 out of 10 stars. Something like that. Anyway, so
stars.
I mean, yes, it was a very good book.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to Uncle Tungsten.
Oh, Uncle Tungsten. Let's talk about that and watch my next video. Click the annotation in the top left.
And so it was compared to Uncle Tungsten, where it's mainly informational, this one was completely fictional, but it had all these ties to the real world. Mm-hmm. And, very allegorical, and you could talk about all those possible symbols, but really, it kept you on the edge of your seat the whole time because you had no clue what was coming next.
Anyway, good book. I liked it. I'd recommend this to any one of my friends who is a huge nerd.
Yep.
But pretty much just huge nerds. Good classic.
Yeah.
It's a classic dystopian book. Whew. I liked it.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So, I think we're done. Thank you for watching this lovely book talk, I guess. I've been Zach Coleman.
Nick Logue.
Just Nick Logue. Boring. Anyway, cut. Bye. Done.